FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
One of the central ideas of this book is masking. And masking is a feature of almost an automatic feature of minority life. It is a kind of survival mechanism. So let me begin by reading just the opening few pages on that to establish that idea. I possess a photographic portrait of Louis Armstrong that I greatly treasure. It must have been taken on a hot summer evening fairly late in his life. In it, he is wearing a short-sleeved shirt, completely unbuttoned in front. Interestingly, a Star of David hangs from his neck on a thin gold chain that glints in the sunlight. His right arm rests on its elbow, so that his powerful right hand is conspicuously next to his face, almost like a second face. Pinched between thumb and forefinger of this hand, in the characteristic dope smoker's grip, is a half-smoked joint that sends a faint trellis of smoke up into the summer air. I was stunned the first instant I laid eyes on this photograph, but not for its novelty of capturing a celebrity in the act of smoking a joint. It was the look on Armstrong's face that grabbed me. It is perfectly frank and guileless. The eyes are sad, willful, and faintly angry all at the same time. Most of all, they seem tired and quite beyond amusement, as if they have seen absolutely everything there is to see. I love the photograph because its image is a million miles away from the iconic image of Louis Armstrong, the tritely happy figure on the bandstand with the trademark white handkerchief, the broken lip, and the self-effacing grin. This is the real man behind the mask in his full depth and complexity, looking exactly like who he really was, one of the 20th century's greatest artists. So nice, even soothing, to see Louis Armstrong as he really was. I also cherish this photograph as a kind of cultural artifact because in its sharp contrast with the familiar image of Armstrong, it symbolizes masking, one of the most interesting and troublesome characteristics in Black American life. Masking is as simple as the fashioning of a face for the world, a face to meet the faces that we meet, as T.S. Eliot once put it. As the word itself makes clear, the mask is not an authentic presentation of one's true self. Rather, it is a presentation of oneself that angles for advantage. Imagine Louis Armstrong, poor, Black, and fatherless, growing up in New Orleans at the beginning of the 20th century, the era in which Jim Crow was entrenching itself across the entire South. White supremacy was being openly written into the law. A system of racial apartheid was being erected and enforced by the terrorism of lynchings, house burnings, and beatings. This was the world in which Louis Armstrong discovered his musical genius. And conversely, it was his genius that propelled him into this larger world and forced him to negotiate it. He was too good to linger his life away on the Black side of apartheid. Talent gave him a life on the white side too. How to handle it? Louis Armstrong adapted a mask that came out of the Black minstrel tradition. It was certainly not as sycophantic and self-demeaning as the blackface caricatures of the actual minstrel shows. Still, it did the one thing it had to do. It communicated to white audiences that Louis Armstrong would entertain them, but not presume to be their equal. The relentlessly beaming smile, the handkerchief dabbing away the sweat, the reflexive bowing, the exaggerated humility and graciousness. All of this signaled that he would not breach the manners of segregation, the propriety that required him to be both cheerful and less than fully human. In other words, Armstrong's mask was a small offering of black inferiority. It was something he had to give to whites, at least a slight concurrence with their mythology of white supremacy and black inferiority. This also amounted to a gift of innocence to whites, because it said that their racism was not prejudice, but truth, a truth he himself would observe. And this little gift of innocence, this slight homage to whiteness, was a part of the show. It helped white people in a segregated society enjoy themselves without guilt, and it enabled them to cherish Louis Armstrong. For the oppressed, and even for those who simply belong to minority groups, masking is always an attempt to offset the power differential that so favors those born to the mainstream. Armstrong's mask allowed him to exercise power in a society bent on keeping power away from his kind. It helped him offset the power differential with whites by giving him a livelihood in the broad American mainstream that he was not meant to have. Bing Crosby, to the mainstream born, did not have to wear a mask of racial self-effacement in order to win an audience. The masks that blacks wear in American society are always strategic, always based on a reading of what is possible in white America.